We have one goal and one goal only here in the second set of notes in Unit 1. Review of what anatomical terms are. These are regional terms, directional terms, and knowing the sections of the body. To start, everything, when we talk the language of anatomy, these directional terms, these sectional terms, everything is based on anatomical position. So you're going to think I'm silly, but you need to stand up, pause the video, stand up, put your palms face forward, put your toes forward, put a little bit of space between your legs, stand up. Everything in the language of anatomy is based off this position. Now, there's a couple of terms for Jeopardy terms, supine and prone. This just refers to whether you are lying face up or face down. It's not something we spend time on. Again, kind of a Jeopardy term. Something when you hear, you'll know what they're talking about. So, moving on, very first thing and foundational to everything we're talking about are the regional terms. When you hear that there is a brachiocephalic vein or a brachiocephalic artery, when you hear that there is a femoral artery or a biceps femoris, brachial, femoral, femoris, those are terms you should recognize and you should automatically know without having to think too hard where that is within the body. So the regional terms are really helpful to giving that foundational understanding where you don't have to expend a lot of brain power. You know, if you hear brachial or biceps brachii or triceps brachii, you know because brachial is arm, those are muscles that are in the arm. When you hear femoral vein or femoral artery, you will know that's in the femoral area, which is the thigh region. This is huge to where we're going. So recognizing the terms and the regions of the body is very important. Plus, you want to recognize that not all landmarks are on both sides of the body. So we have anterior landmarks, or the front of the body, things like the oral, the nasal, the acromial, the patellar. These are things that only exist on the front of the body because patella refers to your kneecap, your patella. The nasal cavity refers to, or the nasal region refers to your nose. The oral refers to your mouth. You obviously don't have a nose or a mouth on the back side or posterior side of your body. Scapular, vertebral, olecranal, popliteal, those are things that are exclusive to the posterior region. Page 12 and 13 in your textbook has the diagram for these regional terms. It will be well worth your time to draw that into your notes. Doesn't have to be ideal. You don't have to do a great drawing. If you need to, put the paper right over the top and copy it down, but you want to take the time to copy it down. There is going to be a dramatic connection between what you remember and what you do with your hand. So it's really important that you take the time to draw and write this out. It will be a huge help as we move on. Next are the directional terms. Again, the directional terms are relative, and they are always based off anatomical position. Now, when I say relative, I mean it's based on what you start with and what you end with. For example, superior means upper. So the belly button, your umbilical region, is superior to your patellar region. It's above it. But the umbilical region is inferior to your pectoral region. So where you start and where you end is very important to the term that you're going to use and the direction you go. Based on those examples, you should now know that superior is above, inferior is below, anterior is front, posterior is back, medial refers to the midline, lateral refers to the side, proximal means close to a point of attachment, whereas distal means far from the point of attachment. Think of it this way, you know if something's in proximity, it's nearby. If something is distant, it's far away. So that's how you can keep proximal and distal distinguished. Superficial and deep. Superficial refers to a surface. Deep refers to going in. So, for example, our skin is superficial, our muscles are deep. Notice also that a lot of these terms are paired. You have one, you have the opposites. We have above and below, front and back, middle and side, close and far, near the edge, and further in. Next up are the planes. The planes are helpful in terms of recognizing what parts are where. If any of you have aspirations for med school, you have to know, based on the plane, what kind of what organs are found there. For example, if I do a sagittal plane, okay, so if you take your hand, put your hand right in front of you, right on top of your nose, sagittal plane creates a right and a left section. Okay, so this is our sagittal plane right here, this one here. If I do a sagittal plane through the body, notice that I'm cutting it in half, so I'm only going to have a right lung, and then over here I have a left lung, but I only see one lung at a time. Now, mid-sagittal refers to something that's right along the midline. So this example here is technically, oops, wrong thing. This is technically a mid-sagittal plane, but it just goes right along the midline. So we have an even right and left half. Now, conversely, if you look at a frontal or coronal plane, that's this. So take your hand that you just had on your nose, turn it sideways, so it's like you're going to karate chop someone, and put that right down the middle of your head so that your fingers are over one set of shoulders and the palm of your hands over another set of shoulders. That creates a front and a back. So we have a separation into anterior and posterior. If I do a frontal or coronal plane, notice that I'm going to get parts of both lungs. So I will see some of both sets of lungs. I'll see my right lung and my left lung because of the way the plane is. The last plane is what's known as a transverse plane, and this one just goes across. So anywhere I have where I cut it across this way, that is a transverse plane. So I get a top and a bottom, a superior and an inferior section. A lot of your med school sections will be based on this transverse section so that you know what's in that entire region or body part. The last thing we're going to hit on are what are known as the quadrants and the regions. So quadrant is easy. Quadrant means 4. Region is not. The quadrants are what you hear about a lot with med school. So especially if somebody has problem in their right lower quadrant. Right lower quadrant is where your appendix is. So if somebody has what's known as guarding, or when you push or palpate that area, it kind of resists and there's something going on, sometimes that's an indication of an appendix issue. But notice again, right and left. Right and left is not as we look at it. Right and left is again based on anatomical position. Same thing with our regions. Notice that we have these different regions. We have the iliac region, the hypogastric, umbilical, epigastric, hypochondral, lumbar, etc. The regions are based on what it's around. So the iliac region, well, that's the ilium. That bone right there, that part of your coxa or your hip is known as the ilium. So this is the iliac region. Notice my left and my right, again, based on anatomical position. The lumbar, okay, in this area is our lumbar region or the lower back region. So this is the lumbar region. Up here we have hypochondriac. Okay, chondra actually means cartilage. So all of this section of your ribs is cartilage. So if I have the hypo means below. So I have the hypochondriac region, and so I have a right and a left. Epigastric, epi means above, umbilical, it's where our little belly button is, and hypo means below. So hypo means below the stomach. So our stomach's in this area. And again, all regions and quadrants are there to help us recognize what's where. So notice here's our stomach, right? Right about in the middle. We have the various intestines and things like that. So it's just a way to further delineate or explain or know what organs or things are going on in different areas. It's to kind of recognize and limit the amount of information you need to know for a particular area. So again, one thing, the purpose of this entire set of notes was to make sure you knew anatomical terms and being able to describe the body sections, the body regions, and the body positions.